What up, y'all? It's Crew, also known as the Rainy Storm, checking in for the Pluto series. Pluto in Cancer, to be exact, right? For those of you always coming in the first time, my name is, once again, Rainy Storm. I am your Cosmic Rootwork astrologer specializing in Mars activations as well as North Node and South Node consultations. So if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can hit me up at arainystorm.wix.com/info. And you can also find me on all social media at arainystorm. All those links below. Y'all make sure y'all check it out. By Tapestries, my artwork, Mars activations in the past, and everything. Bookings. Check it out. We're not going to spend too much time on it. We're just going to jump right into Pluto. So we're going to talk about Pluto first, and then we're going to talk about Cancer energy and how those things combine. So when we talk about the energy of Pluto, we're talking about Scorpion energy. Its rulership is over Scorpio. It rules over Scorpio energy, and this is where we talk about the dark depths, depth and rebirth. When we talk about the phoenix rising out the ashes, we talking about Pluto. All right, this energy was actually introduced to the masses in around 1930 is when it kind of started gaining traction. But as far as Pluto and Cancer generation, this lasted from 1913 to 1939. Now, there are people still alive that are actually a part of this particular generation. I do have an example that I do want to talk about, but I'm going to continue talking about Pluto first, and then I'll actually talk about or get into like this Cancerian energy and what that was about as well. So, like I said, power plays, power struggles. You know, this Pluto is obsessed with power, the need for power, to seek this kind of power. I also want to say too that I don't think I said in the other videos, but Pluto is really, I mean, it's Scorpio, it's psychic as hell. You feel me? It knows how to probe into the mind. It can also be very manipulative. But then again, at the same time, it's also one that can also bring about great change for the betterment of the world. You know, it can build and it can also destroy at the same time. So it's a very like hot and cold kind of energy. Even though it's watery, it definitely gives me like that hot, cold, like you really just don't know what you're gonna get. It's like you can't fuck around with Saturn, but you also can't fuck around with Pluto or Neptune. You just can't. You can't get away with shit with these motherfuckers. So when you talk about the energy of Pluto and Cancer, right, and you have this cardinal water energy, right, and Cancer already being rulership of the moon, very psychic in itself. I feel like this is, besides it being in its home sign of Scorpio, which is my generation in particular, I feel like this can also get pretty deep because we're talking about the moon. And before I get into like my own little notes of what I made for Pluto and Scorpio, or Pluto and Cancer in itself, one thing I could say, because I have somebody in my family who's a part of this generation who's actually still alive to this day. And one thing I could say about her is she was shunned for her psychic gifts when as a child. She would have very prophetic dreams, very prophetic dreams, and she would share those things, you know, with other members of her family, and they would ask her, you know, basically make her feel some type of way, you know, basically make her feel a way for being able to be basically the ability to see. She was a seer, you know, she's a seer, I should say, because she's still alive. And so it was interesting because at this time, because of colonization, we were deemed as, or, you know, a lot of things outside of the Christianity and Christian religion and things like that. And this is not going to be a whole spill about religion and Christianity. I'm just making an example. But a lot of what was deemed, a lot of our roots and our heritage and the way we worshipped and the way we communed with our ancestors, the way we communed with our spiritual guides and our teams, was actually shunned. It was looked at as demonic. It was looked at something that was bad or coming from basically a fucked up place with fucked up intentions. You feel me? And so in this generation, a lot of times, you know, if we talk about the energy of Cancer being the shell, you know, being the crab in its shell, even though Cancer, this generation knows it has those gifts and really tapped into those gifts at a very young age, oftentimes what would happen is there were people who were like crab-like in this instance, where they would kind of go hide in their shell or not really want to talk about those gifts because they were often shunned or talked about or made to feel a way about having and being able to harness and hold those gifts. So very, very powerful generation. I would definitely say if you have grandmothers, grandfathers that are still alive to this day, talk to them about some of this stuff, because they might have gifts that they've never shared towards the family, maybe up until now. Maybe now they're starting to share the shit, but they might have gifts and knowledge that they've never really bestowed, you feel me, until you ask, because it was very hush hush in this time. So like I said, psychic as hell. This is not a generation that was too keen, unless you have a lot of mutable energy, but it wasn't really too keen on a whole bunch of changes. Like Cancer likes to feel comfortable, so when you start shifting a whole bunch of shit around too much at once, this can also make, you know, a Cancerian feel you know, shifty, you feel me? And this is definitely a time where a lot of people had to move up out of their homes, because we're talking about the home here when we talk about Cancer. So a lot of transformations in the home, a lot of people moving out of their homes or being kicked out of their homes during this time. But also people, like I said, really truly tapping into their psychic gifts. A lot of people had to go into hiding in order to experience this. Okay, a lot of people had to go into hiding during this time because they had these gifts that needed to be cultivated. We'll talk about that more for Pluto and Virgo. But this is definitely like before the mystery schools. I wouldn't say before the mystery school, because mystery schools have been around in ancient times. But if we're just talking about the Americanized way of looking at this stuff, the fact that we had to go in hiding to develop our gifts, this is after the Salem witch trials and things like that. Definitely go look it up if you don't know what the Salem witch trials is. But you know what I mean, it make you wonder, you know what I mean? One thing that I definitely say, and I don't know why this is coming up now for this particular reading, one thing I definitely say is everything that has been deemed in this world as demonic or otherworldly or whatever the case may be, I think the older I get, or the more that I start to develop my gifts, or I could just say this new awareness comes over me, I often question the things now that are like things that are looked at as demonic or wrong or bad and things like that. I'm like, well, why is it that? You know what I mean? Like, why is this deemed as this? Especially when we were kids and this is how things are. I'm like, well, why is that? You know, we got to start questioning shit, right? But that's not what we're here talking about, right? I also want to say that this energy, that's another video. I also want to say that this energy could definitely talk about like being depressed or depression. I think this was around the time of the Great Depression, or was it? I think this might have been around the time of the Great Depression, if I'm not mistaken. 1939, or was it the 40s? I have to look, but I think this was around the time, or at least a predate to the Great Depression. You know, people losing their jobs, not being able to provide for the family, the stock market crashing. It might have been Pluto. No, it's not that. The stock market crashing. I'm gonna have to look that up, but I think it was around the time of the Great Depression, the 30s, 40s, or something like that, where shit, or at least a pretense of it, went crazy. So a lot of people were taken advantage of during this time. A lot of people have been taken advantage of all throughout fucking history, but that, once again, is a whole nother story. A whole nother story for another time. But one thing that I definitely want to say during this time was a time of psychic development of gifts. All right, people were tapping into things that probably 40 years before that, you know what I mean? I wouldn't say 40 years before that, but people in this U.S. soil, because people had been stripped away by this time of their own nature, of their own ideals, of their own thoughts, and how they move within their own communities and things like that. This was a great time, I feel like, of reconnectedness to that. So very much so a powerful generation. Like I said, if you have people in your family that's still alive during this time, it don't have to just be grandmas and grandpas, it could be whoever is still alive during this time. I would definitely have a conversation with them and kind of pick their brain a little bit. I mean, it's Pluto, okay, probe it, you know what I mean, and just kind of see where they at, you feel me? So that's my summary of Pluto and Cancer. Like I said, I know I'm kind of going quick on these videos, but honestly, we're going to do a whole thing about all the planets. And then, like I said, I'll go deeper into this stuff on the Patreon. It's not up at the moment, But I'll definitely let y'all know when that shit is up. I'll do like a little commercial and shit like that for it. So you already know what it is. It's a rainy storm checking in, checking out without a motherfucking doubt. Deuces.